Wolves and a Door. We're talking about Star Wars Rebels here with Beyond the Blast Doors. I'm one of your hosts, David. This is Jesse, and we have episode 12 to recap for you right now with this Rebels review. And Jesse, I don't know about you, but coming into this episode, I was really nervous because last week we just saw Kanan die. It's like, how does Dave Filoni and crew start back up with the story? I was nervous. Were you?
I had a box of Kleenexes ready in case we were going to have another tearful moment.
Sabine gets her head cut off or something.
Don't say that. That's harsh.
I don't want that to happen. It didn't happen. It was a thought that crossed
Save
my
the
mind.
Mandos.
We jump right in with Ezra talking with his friends about how they need to go check out the Jedi Temple there on Lothal because he is sensing there's a problem. He has this tablet with these 3 images of hands, and he's like, they mean something. I don't know what they mean. And Sabine, is like, we need to go to the Jedi Temple. I think I can help you decipher the meanings of this, but I need to see it in context.
Yeah.
And so they decide they're gonna go off to the temple. At this moment, what are you thinking right now as Ezra starts to call these Lothal wolves to their aid?
Well, I think it's interesting, because Kanan was kind of like, he was like their leader in many ways, and for a while they didn't really trust, like the Force and everything really wasn't a factor in the beginning of Rebels. And now they've reached a point to where, that duo between Kanan and Ezra was kind of important. And now that Kanan's gone, they realize that Ezra... if Ezra, basically is like, this is a big deal. There's something wrong. We have to handle it. And just, they're trusting him. They know they have to trust him because of his connection to the Force and everything.
They get to the Imperial dig site, which is the Jedi Temple, by using these Lothal wolves. And the way they transport, to me, was like the first challenge as a Star Wars fan because they mount these wolves, they take off, and then they disappear. And then on screen it goes white, and you start hearing Kanan's voice and it's quotes from the past, and you're kind of going down memory lane in a way, and I'm thinking, wow, this is kind of trippy. Like, what's going on? What was your thought about that? Because again, here's an example of Rebels kind of pushing the limits of what we know about the Force and kind of explaining that lore.
I was a little hesitant at first. I really enjoyed hearing the different voices and everything. What I found interesting was, normally when we've seen the crew ride these wolves, they've been put into like a Force-induced sleep. This was different. It didn't happen this time. And so they get off the wolves, and it wasn't just Ezra that heard these voices. It was the whole crew, and they're not sure what to make of it. Where Ezra, it seems like he's a little bit more used to it because of his Force sensitivity, where, like Hera, Sabine, and Zeb were like, we going crazy kind of thing, like... what just happened.
Right, but I thought, as far as execution, it was done really well.
Yeah.
And this was the first of a few moments in these 2 episodes. Of course, we'll talk about A World Between Worlds in the next video, but where I felt hesitant about the portrayal of the Force and how the Star Wars lore was working in that moment, because I would go back to like the Clone Wars, and I wasn't on board right away with the magic that was used to revive Maul with the Night Sisters,
Yeah.
And the whole Mortis thing kind of threw me for a loop in the Clone Wars as well. So then to start seeing this bending of the Force, it kind of gave me those same feelings of skepticism, a little hesitancy. But the more I think on it, the more I am growing to really enjoy it. And this also plays into a factor in a little while with this episode. So our crew winds up at the Imperial dig site. And Jesse, tell me, did this not feel like Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark? You see the vehicles and the boxes, all the crews working at this site. I felt like I was looking at the Nazis digging for the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, it had that same feel and everything, which was kind of nice. I kind of almost wonder if that was like done intentionally as an Easter egg.
I would think so. With as big of a fan as Dave Filoni is with Indy, it would make sense, and it really worked out well. Our characters devised this plan where they need to, obviously Ezra and Sabine have to get to the temple, so they sneak down and they steal the armor of a couple of scouts. There's a nice Jedi Force trick there, which is a great little moment to show Ezra's progression with his capabilities. We get this Minister Hydran. What do you think about this guy? Because every time he came on screen, for me, I was fearful of him. I took him very seriously.
Well, the first time we see him is, he's walking around 2 Death Troopers, and they catch Sabine and Ezra and examining some of the artwork and everything, and he like spazzes out. So he really gives that like that museum curator thing, like don't touch the art kind of thing.
Well, and that we learn that this is a side project, very secretive of the Emperor's, and this minister is doing the Emperor's bidding here. it's interesting. The Emperor, not only does he want this great power of the galaxy, but he's also after relics, Force artifacts.
Yeah.
And, you've brought up something in past, too. Talk about how it connects to Battlefront 2.
So in Battlefront 2, if you play the single-player campaign, there is a mission where you're playing as Luke Skywalker, and at the end of this mission, you enter into this secret vault that Palpatine had, and it's filled with artifacts. In particular, Luke takes a star compass, which we see for a brief moment in The Last Jedi, just kind of like laying like on a table in his his hut and everything. So I thought that was like a really nice tie-in because it kind of makes sense. In previous movies, Palpatine does seem to collect this kind of artwork and everything. So I don't know if that's just kind of like his personal taste.
No, but I like how it takes it to the extreme, right? Because like if you read the DK books, you know that two of the statues in Palpatine's Senate office were Sith statues.
Now, did you catch the part after Ezra and Sabine, they get caught? Well, Sabine gets caught again. Ezra's kind of down there, kind of examining this, the artwork and everything that we'll kind of get to. But what reinforces this is that Sabine gives a military code because Sabine was in the Imperial Academy for a long time.
I like this moment.
And then the stormtroopers are like, "That's military code. Like this is such and such. This is like." So it's like a top secret. It's like within the Empire and everything. It's like beyond the military.
Right, only a select few are aware of it. And I guess that's where I was trying to go, was the fact that it shows to the extent that of how much of a collector the Emperor is, and he's after something really important here. And I don't want to give too much away. You get a lot of question and setup in this first episode, and it really pays off in A World Between Worlds, which is the next episode. We'll have a video breaking down that episode as well. But this episode really is a bunch of setup. Sabine gets taken away by those two troopers, and they start to interrogate her. Meanwhile, Ezra finds the mural eventually on the wall.
What's on the mural?
Well, it's familiar faces. Can we say familiar faces?
Yes, familiar faces, indeed.
It's the father, it's the son, and it's the daughter. Three. I believe Dave Filoni refers to them as Force gods that we met in that Mortis arc that I mentioned a few minutes ago in the Clone Wars. And so it's all coming together because the tablet features 3 hand positions, and those hands are on this mural. And so Ezra's trying to figure out how it all works. And obviously, as this episode progresses, he's able to connect the dots that, they're the same hands. And then he uses the Force to eventually activate this mural, which is probably one of my favorite moments of the entire series. We might have to rewind here in just a second, but while we're on the topic, this mural is like 2D. And obviously the show, Rebels, is 3D. And it's this great integration of technology because Ezra activates this thing with the Force, then all of a sudden there's these wolves depicted at the bottom of the mural that begin to not circle, but they get up and they walk off.
Like it's like animated in like 2D.
Right.
I'm not sure. Like I've seen it in other video games, other movies and shows, but this was done really nicely.
It was done it was really cool. Like you noticed it. Like I thought it was like a different. It was different. And it was really cool. And so these wolves go away, and then like Ezra has to go follow them. So Ezra goes and follows these mural wolves. Meanwhile, Sabine is still getting tied up with the troopers. Hera, Zeb, and Chopper are up in the bluff, like looking down, and they see that Sabine's getting taken away. They don't know where Ezra is. So that was all just kind of interesting to see how these, the different paths these characters are walking.
Now, there's a moment though, that you're forgetting about with Hera and Zeb up there while they're watching, and like Hera is really just having a lot of doubts at this point. I mean, she lost her love and everything, like her best friend kind of thing. And you'd mentioned it, a little bit before the episode. What happens while they're watching here?
Oh, when Kanan pops up?
Yeah. It was just like, I really love that because it was kind of touching and everything because it's just like it shows that Kanan is still there.
His essence is somehow still there through the Force.
And she even feels it because she, he, at the moment, like he kind of like places a hand on her shoulder and then she, I don't know if it's just her just kind of remembering his presence so much or if he is actually there. I just thought it was kind of a nice moment.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. At this point, we've kind of walked you through this episode, but one key scene that I feel like we have to talk about, because it's going to be both of our pros, is the Emperor's debut
Ooh.
in Star Wars Rebels. Now, I say debut. He was alluded to in past episodes, but we're getting Ian McDiarmid voicing the Emperor. And he's talking to the minister about the death of Kanan Jarrus and what that means. What was your interpretation of hearing Palpatine so well educated about Kanan Jarrus and the Rebels?
Just the impact, apparently, that this crew has had. And specific, Kanan and Ezra are definitely, they're on his table. They're in his sights. He knows about them, and he, I think, in many ways considers them a threat.
He definitely has his plan in motion. He's trying to excavate, learn whatever secrets the Lothal Temple offers. But he definitely does seem hypersensitive about Kanan Jarrus and how it could shake the balance. And you're thinking to yourself,
it's scary, too, a little eerie, too. That kind of gives you a sense of how powerful Palpatine is to be able to kind of
it's just
really feel that,
I just was like blown away by how great it sounded to hear Ian McDiarmid
oh my gosh.
voice the Emperor again, and it just chills down my spine. Like, just think about it, like the Emperor of Return of the Jedi singing Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, like that just melted me, like my heart as a fan, because it's so connective. And how lucky are we that we live in a time where our show, like our favorite movies, we can get movies 30 years later and still have Mark Hamill be Luke and Han Solo be Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher be Leia. And then you get to go back in time. You get to go back in time with Star Wars Rebels, and you have Ian McDiarmid, who is the Emperor, do the Emperor's voice. And that's not a slam against Sam Witwer, because he crushes it as the Emperor too. But
I love Sam.
Sam has even said it before.
We could do a whole podcast on Sam.
Right. He said before, if you can have the real Emperor, have the real Emperor. And no, that was a really great moment. Aside from that, because that is a pretty big pro, what is your biggest takeaway from this episode, Wolves and a Door?
It's just kind of like that calm before, like I almost feel like it's a calm before the storm.
Okay, interesting.
Some interesting things happening, and it's just like there's, if the Emperor is involved on this level, there's something big going on here that he wants. And that's, again, it's scary, because it's just like, what is it that he wants out of this place?
I'm really excited to dive into the next episode to review that one, because that's where we'll get to talk about a lot of the answers to the setup that we've just broken down from episode 12, Wolves and a Door. This episode ends with Ezra meeting the endpoint with these mural wolves. They've walked so far into the shadow, and they begin spinning in a circle, and that opens a portal. And Ezra goes into the portal, and in the next episode, we find out what's on the other side. Get our take by watching our next episode review. That's going to be episode 13, A World Between Worlds. You can watch that right now on our YouTube channel here at Beyond the Blast Doors. That's going to do it for us. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can watch other videos just like this one right now by checking out these videos on your screen. And by the way, thanks for checking out Beyond the Blast Doors.